Hello and welcome back. So far we have talked about moms playing small, why they play small, how it just sort of enters into their environment almost naturally, and how they're just kind of expected to fall in line, and how this can end up leading to the issues that they start to feel around being unfulfilled, around not being happy, maybe having their confidence take a hit because they're afraid to stand up for themselves, out of thinking that they're neglecting their families, not looking after themselves for the same reason, shaming. So we spoke on that. And then the next video was how I made the change myself and why that mattered. So if you missed those two, definitely check out the first and the second video in this playlist. You can watch these videos pretty much in any order. But if you kind of start from the beginning and work your way through, you're going to notice a bit of a flow, and you're going to see how things develop, which is kind of important when it comes to making the decision to be your best mom self, because that's really, in the end, what the big thing is, becoming your best mom self. And so if you can watch them in any order, like I said, and you're going to pull out nuggets. But if you watch them beginning to end, you're going to see the flow, and it's going to help you in your decision making. So let's get started with the next one. Um, and basically, unfortunately, this is where some of the truth comes out that, as amazing as it is to do the whole best mom's health journey, and how it's really worth it in the end, and why you should absolutely do it. Unfortunately, a lot of the times, the most meaningful things, the things that really will make a difference in your life, are not the easiest things to do. And so I just want to be fully honest on that point, that once you've made the decision, yes, you are halfway there. Yes, the commitment is amazing, it's admirable, but it's not the easiest thing to do and to stay with, especially if you're doing it yourself. And so I just want to speak a little bit on it from my end, because I knew there was going to be a journey involved. I just didn't realize everything that was involved and everything that could come from it. And I'm not saying this to scare you off. I'm just letting you know, be prepared. Because if someone had told me and was there to guide me, it probably wouldn't have taken the years that it did. And I want to shave those years off for you. So, um, convincing yourself to change your mindset is already a huge thing to do. And you're halfway there because you're watching these videos. You wouldn't have found these videos, you wouldn't be watching them still if you weren't determined to change your mindset. So, thing. But in changing your mindset, you now have to deal with a bunch of other things that come up with it, like judgment from others. You have the people who, like in my case, they liked me being the people pleaser. They liked me being the little soldier that followed orders. They liked me being submissive to them. And suddenly here I am coming out and, saying no and putting up my boundaries, and maybe cutting certain people out of my life. And they didn't like that. They didn't like the change. And that was difficult for me because I was a former people pleaser. I wanted people to be happy with me. I wanted to be liked. But liked and respected aren't necessarily the same thing. And I was also looking for respect, and I knew that I wasn't getting it from them. Um, Another thing that I had to face was I don't have time to look after myself. I have two young kids. At the time, they were less than one, and they were four, just four. So they hadn't hit school yet, maybe almost thankfully, because I had time to work on myself. Well, I didn't have time, but I had the option of working on myself with them watching, so that they could see the changes that I was doing, and it would be, kind of considered normal for them. They were young enough at the time to be able to take this all in and just eventually see it as normal. But I really had to work on the whole, I do have time. I have to make the time. The time isn't going to just fall into my lap, especially with two little ones. I have to start prioritizing. Does that mean, instead of cleaning the house while the little one naps, I take half an hour for myself and I have a shower, or I have a bath, or maybe that's when I do some reading. The chores are always going to be there. The laundry is always going to be there. The dishes are always going to be there. I can come back to them at another time, or I can ask for help, which is another thing that I had to work on. I can delegate, but time for myself, the things that I need to be able to do for myself, that's not something I can delegate. That's not something I can get somebody else to do. Even, if that means going to a hair salon and getting my hair done, technically someone else is doing that, but I have to create the time for it. So I had to go from I don't have time to look after myself to I have to make the time to look after myself. I had to get over the fact that, I didn't want people thinking that I was a terrible mother for not spending all my time with my kids. I didn't want to be known as the mother who neglected my kids because I was looking after myself. What changed that thought for me was that when I had energy, when I had had a little bit of rest, when I felt good because I got my nails done, or, I bought myself a shirt that I liked, or I just gone out for a walk or something, something to replenish me. When I had done that, I had more energy, I had more time, I had more patience to be with my kids. I had more in the moment presence with them instead of constantly thinking of all the other things that I needed to do. So I actually wasn't neglecting them by taking that little bit of time for myself. If anything, I have had the opportunity to put more into them by doing that. So it was a switch. It took a long time. I had to explain it to hundreds of people. Some understood, some did not. Some still saw it as you're taking time for yourself and you're neglecting your kids. Okay, fine. Well, I didn't want them with me then, which I had to work on because you do feel hurt by that when someone just decides all of a sudden that you doing the best thing for yourself so that you can do the best thing for your family isn't good enough. That's hard. But I realized having more time for my kids and I watched the difference with them and I watched the difference in myself. And it was just like, this is what I need to do. So that was an obstacle that I had to overcome. It took me a very long time. And my confidence took hits over and over and over with it. And I'm hoping by watching these videos, potentially maybe even seeing what comes next, it's not going to take years for you. Um, Speaking along the lines of confidence, I already felt like I was failing in a lot of ways. So how the heck can I feel better about my situation? I had a number of health problems around the time that my sons were born, which led to issues with their births and looking after them. I actually had to get my gallbladder removed when my youngest was 9 months old, and I was very removed from them for about 2 months while I was healing because I could cuddle them, but I couldn't hold them. I couldn't carry them around. I couldn't carry a lot of things for them. I couldn't carry more than 10 pounds while I was healing. And that's when I learned that I had to ask for help. But it was like, how did I let myself get in such a situation like this? Like, how did I assume I was going to be okay with kids when these health issues come out of nowhere and I can't even look after myself? So I felt like I was failing because I didn't have the time or the energy or the presence to be with them while I was healing. So how can I feel better? How can I have gratitude? How can I assume that the situation is just going to get better? And unfortunately, I don't really have a concrete answer for you on how to do it. It's kind of relative to everyone. You just kind of have to believe that it's going to get better and that there's going to be someone there on your side. And that as long as let's go a little Monty Python here. Always look on the bright side of life. Seriously. Like, if you can just find one thing to be grateful for, one thing to be happy about. And I don't mean grateful in like you owe everybody and everything for your very existence. I mean grateful from a place of warmth and happiness and depth and just loving people, loving your life. You're going to get there. It's going to take some time, but that first step is what's going to push you the rest of the way. Another objection to this whole thing too is, now that I'm doing this, now that I am, helping moms with it, there's always the financial aspect of it. And it's like, I know the economy is really bad, especially depending on where you are. I've seen it, where I'm living, everything's just falling. And there's that feeling of, if I can barely keep food on the table, who am I to afford coaching? And I know that feeling. I've been there, can't keep food on the table, trying to keep the lights on, trying to keep the rent paid. trying to keep your car in working condition so that you can just go out to these things, get even, get to your job. And it's hard. And I don't, want this to be something that's another, financial burden on you. Um, my biggest question to you is that if you're this far through and you've resonated with everything that or most things that I've said so far, which if you're still here, I think you have, and these obstacles and stuff that have come up, you're kind of nodding along and realizing that there's some similarities to the position you're in. I don't want to say, how can you not afford me? Because that does kind of feel, condescending, but it's more like, how can you not afford to try and be your best? How can you take that away from your future self? And how can like, if you're stuck now, if what you're doing now hasn't been working, then what's going to make it work in the future? And would a little bit of help you? So again, I don't want this to be a financial difficulty. I've been there. I know how hard it can be. We can talk. We can make these things work. I will have a appointment link in the description below where you can book a free call with me, and we can chat this over, or we can have a consultation and see how you're feeling about becoming your best mom self. Another thing to consider as well, and this is something that we always hear: I don't have enough hours in the day already. How am I supposed to add whatever it is that makes me feel better? I honestly hate the saying, we all have the same 24 hours. I get it. 10 years ago, I was even kind of buying into that a little bit, that, it's like, oh yeah, we all have the same 24 hours. It's just how you use it. It is, but it's more complicated than that. We have 24 hours in a day, that's a given, but some of us don't have to commute to and from a job, commute to and from school, commute to and from the grocery store. Maybe we have delivery systems in place for that, or maybe we are able to set our own hours, and so commuting is not as big of a deal. Whereas if you're in a 9 to 5, you're kind of stuck by the confines of that 9 to 5 commute wise. Then you add in traffic, then you add in accidents, then you add in any kind of issue that can happen on the road. A flat tire, for goodness sake, could set you back 2-3 hours. So it's not that those who don't have time aren't using it correctly. It's that they have a different set of circumstances. And I totally get it. I've gone from being my own boss and setting my own hours to working corporate because what I was doing got completely shut down over COVID and the pandemic. And so I switched to an office job, and I've been stuck in the confines of, well, an 8 to 5, and trying to get my kids into school and out of school and all that. And it's hard. Like, all of a sudden, more than half your day is gone. I get it. So, how are you supposed to add self care or whatever it is that makes you feel better? By taking away the things that don't, if they're optional. So, maybe instead of um, worrying about dinner every single night, maybe try to have a meal prep plan in place. Maybe it won't work for the entire week, but maybe if you can free up 2 or 3 days and you take that time instead of cooking to have a bath or go for a walk or read a book. Maybe on the weekend, instead of sleeping in until 9, you wake up at 8. I know that can be hard if you were up late the night before, or maybe the night before, one day a week. I don't know. Instead of doing something else that takes up your time but doesn't help you, use that time to do something that does help you, even if it's only half an hour a day focused on you and solely you. Massive game changer. So these are just some of the things that have come up in my time with myself and with the people that I help. And not everybody, decides that this is for them right now. And some people don't come back anyway. But if some of this, has spoken to you, does resonate with you, you realize you want to make a change, it doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be costly. And if you need a guide so that it doesn't take you years, that's where I come in. And I'm not here to tell you that everything you're doing is wrong. You're doing a lot of things right. Absolutely. Or you wouldn't be here. but let's tweak what we can to make it work even better for you. That is the point of becoming your best mom self, is just smoothing it all out so that you have a straight shot. So this doesn't cover all of the objections or all of the things that have ever, come through. These would be the main ones. So you're probably going to be telling yourself a whole bunch of other ones. You're probably going to be really holding back on whether this is something you want to do. And I just want to bring you back to the idea of, but how do you want to feel in a year? Do you want to feel the exact same, or do you want to feel like you're making progress with becoming your best mom self, to have that time, that energy for yourself and your kids and your loved ones, and just be able to take your life and go? So with that question, answer it in the comments if you would like. Book an appointment with me if you would like. Again, all the links will be in the comments below or in the description below. And stay tuned for the next video.